Tonight, the astonishing case of the Cleveland kidnappings. 3 missing women are free after a decade in captivity. It all started with a rescue and a call to 911.
I've been kidnapped and I've been missing for 10 years and I'm here, I'm free now.
Dean Reynolds is on the scene. Bob Orr has the FBI investigation. The military admits to thousands of sexual assaults in the ranks. David Martin has the story. History on Wall Street. The Dow breaks through 15,000. Anthony Mason looks at what it means. And when Brian Preston started a company to recycle wood, he discovered he could recycle people, too.
What do they all say?
There ain't no hope. You can build hope.
This is the CBS Evening News with Scott Pelley.
Good evening. When the news broke in Cleveland, it was as if the entire country came in at the incredible ending of a movie that no one knew was playing. We have spent this day trying to fill in the details of a story that began a decade ago when 2 teenagers and a 20-year-old woman vanished without a trace. It all ended last night with their dramatic rescue, and Dean Reynolds is in Cleveland.
Late today, FBI evidence teams removed vehicles as well as bags and boxes of items from the rundown house where the nightmare ended with this cry for help.
Cleveland 911, you need...
Hello, please. Help me, I'm Amanda Berry.
You need police, fire, or ambulance.
I need police.
Okay, and what's going on there?
I've been kidnapped and I've been missing for 10 years and I'm here, I'm free now.
Barry vanished in 2003, just a day before her 17th birthday, as she was walking home from her job at Burger King. Gina DeJesus went missing a year later on her way home from school at the age of 14. Michelle Knight was 20 when she disappeared in 2002. The Seymour Street house is just miles from where they vanished. It was neighbor Charles Ramsey who first saw Barry screaming for help as she struggled to get out the front door.
We had to kick open the bottom. Luckily on that door it was aluminum, it was cheap. And she climbed out with her daughter. She went to my house, we called 911.
Talk to the police when they get there.
Okay, I'm right now.
We're going to send them as soon as we get a car open.
No, I need them now before we get back.
All right, we're sending them, okay?
Police believe that was a reference to the homeowner Ariel Castro, 52, a former school bus driver who was arrested along with his 2 brothers, O'Neill, 50, and Pedro, 54. Police found the 2 other missing women inside the house. Sandra Ruiz is the aunt of Gina DeJesus.
Those women are so strong. What we do out here, what we've done in 10 years is nothing compared to what those women have done together to survive.
Neighbors said Ariel Castro had become increasingly reclusive of late. More than one recalled seeing women in the windows of his house and even in the backyard on occasion. Police went to the house once in 2004 but did not go inside. Israel Lugo lives 3 doors from Castro.
You think you know your neighbor, but you don't know your neighbor. It could be the best person or a monster.
The women were reunited with relatives at a hospital. This photo, taken by the Berry family, shows Amanda with her sister. Outside the DeJesus home, banners heralded the news.
How'd she look?
Good. She was happy. Spirits were high.
Robert Osario is a cousin of Gina DeJesus and an acquaintance of the suspect, Ariel Castro.
Did you have suspicions?
No. I've known him for over 20 years, and we never suspected anyone like that would do something like this.
Now, the women have been moved to an undisclosed location to spend some time with their families and try to recover from their ordeal. And Scott, we've learned that for some time of their captivity, at least, they were held in restraints. And as for the suspects, the Castro brothers, they are going to be charged tomorrow.
And we'll come back to you there tomorrow, Dean. Thank you very much. Our justice correspondent, Bob Orr, has been talking to his sources today. And Bob, what are the priorities for the FBI now?
Well, Scott, right now the FBI is still processing the home where the 3 women were held, and they're also searching the residences and the cars used by the 3 suspects. the Castro brothers. Investigators say they also might look for evidence in workplaces and storage facilities. Now, at the same time, some specially trained interviewers are talking with the 3 women victims to find out how they were abducted and the conditions of their captivity, and also to find out if anybody else was involved.
Now, many people have disappeared over that period of time. Is the FBI thinking about other potential victims?
Well, this is an open question, Scott. One case involves another missing woman, Ashley Summers. The FBI is now taking another look. She disappeared from the same Cleveland neighborhood in July 2007 when she was 14 years old. In 2009, it's interesting, the FBI issued an appeal for information regarding 3 missing women, Summers, and 2 of those who were found yesterday, Amanda Berry and Gina DeJesus. But we have to say it's not known if Summers had any connection at all to the others.
You know, Bob, I'm curious, how often is a victim of kidnapping recovered successfully like this?
You know, Scott, we were surprised to find out that it happens more often than we might think. The FBI says it opens about 80 cases a year of what they call non-ransom abductions of children. And get this, in nearly half of those investigations, 38 times a year, the children are recovered alive, Scott.
Bob, thanks very much. If there is anyone who can understand something of what these women went through, it is Elizabeth Smart. 11 years ago, when she was 14, she was kidnapped from her bedroom in Salt Lake City by a man who had done odd jobs for the family. She was held and sexually assaulted for 9 months until someone spotted her in public and tipped off the police. Elizabeth Smart is joining us now. Ms. Smart, thank you for joining us. When you heard the news of these women being freed today, what did you think?
I am just so happy. I am overjoyed. And I think that just goes to show that everyday people, the general public, are the people who are going to make the biggest difference. It was because of the bravery and the heroism of that one man that ended up saving those 3 girls, because he was willing to listen, he was willing to act, he was willing to help. So I think it's just wonderful.
Now, you were very young, 14 years old, when you were taken. Why were you not able to escape over those 9 months? What was the thought process like for a young woman like yourself?
Well, it's difficult to explain because, once again, I could explain to you every single detail of what happened, but for me, I was constantly threatened. And for these women, I can't even begin to speculate what they were going through, what threats were made to them, what was happening. And so, I mean, that's a very difficult question to answer.
What were the threats that you were living under at that time?
Threats on my family, threats on my life. Those are the 2 biggest threats I lived under, yes.
And of course, those had a tremendous hold on you at the age of 14. You didn't feel like you had options.
Of course. Of course, my family was everything. They still are everything to me.
Elizabeth Smart joining us from Park City, Utah. Thank you. Elizabeth Smart's abductor, Brian Mitchell, is serving life in prison. His wife, Wanda Barzy, is serving 15 years. There's late-breaking news tonight in Colorado. The man accused of killing 12 people and injuring 70 others in that Aurora movie theater massacre is planning an insanity defense. And Rick Salinger of our CBS station KCNC has the details on this. Rick?
Scott, this document was filed in court this afternoon by the attorneys for James Holmes. It says on Monday he will change his plea from not guilty, which was entered by the judge, to not guilty by reason of insanity. If accepted, the judge will then order a psychiatric examination by the state hospital. At issue is whether Holmes was insane at the time of the shootings. In other words, did he have a mental disease or defect that made him incapable of knowing right from wrong? The burden of proof here in Colorado is on the prosecution to show that he was sane at the time. But the attorneys for Holmes obviously feel this is their best bet to avoid the death penalty. Scott?
Rick Salinger of KCNC. Rick, thanks very much. You know, we've seen so many high-profile murders involving guns. We were surprised today when the Justice Department reported that gun violence has declined sharply in the past 2 decades. In 1993, there were more than 18,000 homicides involving firearms. In 2011, there were just over 11,000. That is a drop of 39%. At the end of a sordid several months, the Pentagon said today that sexual assault in the ranks is rising rapidly. That shouldn't come as a surprise. Just last spring, trials began for 33 instructors at one air base, instructors accused of assaulting 63 recruits. The president was asked about the issue today, and he seemed to have run out of patience.
If we find out somebody's engaging in this stuff, they got to be held accountable, prosecuted, stripped of their positions, court-martialed, fired, dishonorably discharged, period.
The Pentagon report that came out today says the incidence of sexual assault against women in the military is just over 6%. Our research department found today that the incidence in the general population is 2%. Yesterday, we told you that the head of the Air Force sexual assault program was himself arrested on sexual battery charges, and that is where David Martin begins tonight.
Overnight, Lieutenant Colonel Jeff Krasinski has become the poster boy for sexual assault in the military. Congresswoman Jackie Speer pointed to his mugshot as the face that should launch real change in dealing with a long festering problem.
It's an indictment of everything we have done on this issue. And Congress is as culpable as the military in not addressing it, because we've known about this issue for 25 years.
Krasinski has not been convicted of anything yet, but the man who headed the Air Force Office for Prevention of Sexual Assault stands accused of that very crime for allegedly groping a woman. His arrest hung over Defense Secretary Hagel as he outlined an 8-point plan to combat sexual assault.
We're all outraged and disgusted over these very troubling allegations. No one in this building is happy about what happened. We're disappointed. But that doesn't fix the problem.
Here's the problem. The estimated number of sexual assaults among servicemen and women increased from 19,300 in 2010 to 26,000 last year.
This department may be nearing a stage where the frequency of this crime and the perception that there is tolerance of it could very well undermine our ability to effectively carry out the mission and to recruit and retain the good people we need.
That perception of tolerance comes from the fact that of those estimated 26,000 sexual assaults, only 1,100 offenders were punished by the military.
David, thank you. On Wall Street today, there is just no stopping the bull market. The Dow gained 87 points to close above 15,000 for the first time ever. Anthony Mason is here with us now. Anthony, what's driving this?
Well, Scott, the S&P 500 had its fourth straight record close. The index has had its best start to a year since 1991. Since their recent lows back in mid-November, the S&P and the Dow are both up 20%. Corporate profits are a big reason. They're at record levels. 2/3 of the companies reporting earnings this season did better than forecasts. Among the biggest gainers, tech giant Hewlett-Packard stock is up almost 44% this year. Disney, which made $700 million on the film Iron Man 3 over the weekend, is up 33%, and Boeing is up almost 26%. The bull market, Scott, now in its fifth year, just keeps running.
$700 million in a weekend.
Not bad.
Anthony, thank you very much. 1 million people, mostly women and children, have been stampeded from their homes. Clarissa Ward is with them. And fallen heroes have a final homecoming when the CBS Evening News continues. President Obama said today there are no easy answers to resolving Syria's civil war. The U.S., he said, will not take further action unless it is absolutely sure that the Assad dictatorship has used chemical weapons against its people. Syrians rose up against the dictatorship more than 2 years ago. 80,000 have been killed, and 1 million have become refugees. That's a crisis in neighboring countries, including Jordan, where Clarissa Ward is tonight.
This is the fastest growing city in Jordan. Dusty and impoverished, this city is actually a refugee camp. More than 500,000 Syrians have flooded into this tiny country of 6 million. That's the equivalent of 26 million refugees arriving in the U.S., the entire population of Texas. In a country that can hardly support its own population, the refugees are putting a strain on Jordan's water and electricity supplies.
What we call gas layers.
Jordanian lawmaker Mustafa Hamarne told us there's growing resentment against the refugees.
This is really the first time where we hear people in this country very loudly articulating views against opening our borders to receive more and more Syrian refugees.
So Jordanians are really starting to resent Syrian refugees?
Yes, unfortunately, yes.
The feeling of resentment is shared by the Syrians.
Riots and protests have become a regular occurrence here at the Zaatari refugee camp. Residents tell us that they're tired of these wretched living conditions and of being made to feel like they're prisoners.
Refugees in the camps cannot leave, fueling tensions. Jordan's concerns are not limited to the refugee crisis. If the Assad regime falls, there are fears the fighting could spill over into Jordan, destabilizing a key ally of the U.S.
Do you think Jordan is adequately prepared for a post-Assad Middle East?
It depends on who takes over. If we're talking about these extremists, nobody in the region is prepared.
There are a lot of things to prepare for, and Clarissa Ward is joining us in Jordan tonight. Clarissa, there are U.S. military trainers training Jordanian forces there now. What do you know about that?
That's right, Scott. Jordan, of course, is a key ally of the U.S.'s. We know that there are currently about 200 U.S. military personnel here at an air base near the Iraqi border. They're working closely with Jordanian troops, training them for a number of different scenarios that might occur after the Assad regime falls, or if the regime falls. And most importantly, perhaps they're looking at the possibility of training them on how to go in and secure those chemical weapon sites.
Clarissa Ward in Amman tonight. Clarissa, thanks very much. There was a solemn ceremony today to mark the homecoming for fallen heroes. The remains of 3 soldiers and 2 Marines were flown to Dover Air Force Base in Delaware. They were among 7 killed in Afghanistan last week. In all, 2,220 Americans have given their lives in Afghanistan. Is the governor of New Jersey getting himself in fighting shape for a political battle? That story is next. Republican Governor Chris Christie of New Jersey has been battling obesity for years, and today he revealed that he secretly had surgery in February to help him lose weight. A band was placed around his stomach to restrict the amount of food that he can eat. But Christie insists this was not about slimming down to run for president.
My decisions about anything to do with my career are based upon what I think is best for me and best for my family. And, you know, whatever size I happen to be when I have to make decisions about what to do next with my career, I doubt that'll play any role or effect in what I decide to do.
Christie is 50. He's running for a second term as governor. Filmmaking pioneer Ray Harryhausen died today. He was a master of special effects who helped create the ape in Mighty Joe Young. Harryhausen photographed clay characters a frame at a time to create the illusion of motion. Director George Lucas said that without him, there likely would have been no Star Wars. Ray Harryhausen was 92. While a lot of folks were waiting for the economy to turn around, one man found the seeds of a recovery where no one thought to look. That's next.
This portion of the CBS Evening News is sponsored by Safelite Auto Glass.
Our final story tonight is a testament to good old-fashioned American ingenuity. It is alive and well. When the Great Recession put Brian Preston out of business, he got to work building a recovery of his own. Here's Mark Strassman.
You're going to run one down the center?
Brian Preston started the Lehman Luther Furniture Company in Douglasville, Georgia, with no money and 1 employee. In 2008, he lost his remodeling business after the housing market crash and had to lay off 12 employees.
We're going to blow this thing up, aren't we?
We lost our house and our cars, and it had gotten so bad that we were actually having yard sales just to make ends meet, and we had a newborn on the way.
Relatives had taken in his family when he had an idea for a new business. Make furniture out of reclaimed wood like dismantled barns and shipping pallets. He needed skilled craftsmen and found 3 of them living here, in the woods behind a shopping center.
What we found is that there was a whole community of guys, homeless people living together. And most of them were in the housing market also. They were framers. They
just
were
like you.
Trim carpenters, just like me. And so I guess that's why I was so attached to these guys living out there, because I was so close to being out here with them. How many nails are you putting in each one?
About 11.
About 11.
That's how Preston found his first hire, carpenter T.C. Curtis. When Curtis lost his job in Florida, he walked 500 miles to Georgia looking for work.
I swore I would never come back.
He took us to the woods where he lived in a tent for 10 months.
Do you remember the day you left here for good? Yeah. It took me 4 trips to get all my stuff out of here.
4 trips?
Yeah.
Curtis can now afford to rent a room at this boarding house. He has also opened his first checking account in 15 years.
Did you run into people just like you before?
Yes.
What do they all say?
There ain't no hope. I said, you can build hope.
TC just needed some tools. And TC just needed a chance. It's just amazing what a job could do for somebody like that. I completely took it for granted. Okay, pick it up.
The company is on pace to do $500,000 in sales this year, using reclaimed wood to rebuild lives. Mark Strassman, CBS News, Douglasville, Georgia.
Tools and a chance. That's the CBS Evening News for tonight. For all of us at CBS News all around the world, good night.